Welcome to the Curious Hearts Collective podcast, here to help you align to life in joyful, creative, and inspiring ways with your host, Vanessa Trufin.
Welcome, Mayan and Angus. Woo! I am so excited that you guys are here. We were just discussing, Mayan was sharing how she wants to prep, and she's like, what are we talking about today? And Angus's response was, we don't know.
That's the exciting part. We get to have so much fun.
That's what's amazing about when we sit down to do this. It's just sometimes we do know, and we're like, okay, today we want to talk about this, and then we'll have that conversations, and sometimes we have no idea.
And then sometimes we think we know where we're going to go, and then we don't go there at all, like we did in one of the last episodes. It was like, okay, here's what we're going to talk about. And then right out of the gate, I left turned us, and we didn't talk about it at all.
Not
So
at all.
you never know.
And
It's
it was
fun.
and it was okay. And so tell me about, for those that don't know, who are you two? How are you? Who are you? What are you?
It's a great
It's a
question.
loaded
We're still
question.
trying to figure ourselves out. No, it's so funny though, because this is way out of left field. But I feel like it would be cool for you to share what you shared with me this morning that you found from your meditation, from your Power of Eight call back in 2020, before we met.
Yeah.
On my birthday, she found this thing that she did, and I think it will maybe articulate the answer to your question better than either of us could say it off the top of our head. So if you can look that up.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I guess a little bit of a backstory.
Okay.
A friend of mine introduced me to this book and this whole concept of called The Power of Eight. And it's based on a book by Lynn McTaggart. And she studied the impact of when you gather in small groups and focus on one single intention, that miracles can happen. So healing has happened, things like that. And so my friend organized this group and invited me to join. And I participated in a few different rounds. And so each week we take turns being in the hot seat, and then you share what your intention is that you want everybody to focus on for you. And then you meditate or pray for about 10 minutes and then come back and share what you experience. So she had her birthday and she was like, for my birthday, I want to do like a reunion of all the Power of Eight people, my friends. And so we led it yesterday, or I actually helped her lead it.
Yeah.
And I was just curious, like how far I've come, to see how far I've come. And so I was looking through, so we have this document and we each write like the date that we are assigned and our intention that we want to share with the group and all of that. And this was one of the rounds. It was in 2019 and
It was 2020. Oh, maybe the round started in 2019.
yeah, the round was 2019. So it was about a year and a half before I met Angus.
Okay.
But I looked up what I had wrote and it was so wild. Okay, so I'm going to read it to you.
Okay.
And I was actually going through, I was in couples therapy. I was married at the time and we were having issues. And so we were in couples therapy and I didn't even know this, but 6 weeks after I had written this and had my session done, we ended up separating. And so when I wrote this intention, I wrote that my intention is that I'm experiencing true love, the type of true love that I'm here to experience this lifetime, and that I am free and I'm encouraged to be my highest expression of myself and in my power. My partner and I elevate each other simply by being who we are, and I not only feel loved, but supported, inspired, and amplified. And we are both continuously growing, both individually and as a couple. And we are students of life, for life, and we love sharing our reflections and learnings with each other. We inspire each other to be our best selves. We talk about everything and anything, and there's nothing that we can't go deep on. And we're powerhouses in our own right, pursuing our big dreams around what matters the most to us, making a huge difference in the world while being a contribution to each other. And it's a true partnership full of love, support, fun, passion, and aliveness. So I wrote that, I was still married. That was the type of relationship that I wanted to create. And I had no idea at the time that 6 weeks later we would separate and then eventually divorce. So I was looking back on this morning and reading, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's the type of relationship we've created. Like every single line is what we're living right now. And then when I go and look at the date that I was assigned to go, that was my date. It was Angus's birthday.
Yeah, so strange synchronicity there. But I just want to point out when she started reading that this morning, I think it was like the second line in,
Yeah,
she like kind of choked up,
emotional,
and then like every line stayed emotional because every line was true to our relationship. And so to answer your question, that's who we are. Like we are constantly looking to grow, constantly learning, constantly trying to support each other, help each other be the best that we can be. And we're making a difference in the world, and we want to help other people find that love for themselves.
That's a beautiful answer. See, totally unscripted, completely raw, authentic, and from the heart. And
what just happened this morning?
Seriously, what a beautiful synchronicity that the day that we get to meet together and have these conversations, I'm just going to call them magical conversations.
Love it.
You experience that. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you, Mayan? That whole experience, what does that tell you?
I mean, there's so much. Okay, so because it's been a journey, right? From going from being married to separated and divorce, and then going back into dating, or even before that, like discovering myself, reclaiming who I am, going back into dating, and then finally meeting him and being in a relationship, and then now creating a business together and working together. Like that whole journey has been, I feel like, a whole lifetime worth of experiences. But I think looking back and seeing how far I've come, and even the clarity that I had in terms of back then, like I had no idea how things were going to turn out, but that was my intention for my life. That was my intention for the love, the type of love that I get to experience and receive and create and co-create. So I think looking back, it's like, okay, so if I have clarity, if I know what I want, and I set the intention, and I'm stepping into this person, this woman who deserves that, like God, universe is gonna support me in creating that. And so, yeah, it means a lot seeing how far I've come. Yeah.
One of the things as you're talking that sticks out to me is that we get to not be too concerned about what it looks like. You know, as you're talking initially, my brain went to so many of our clients have a list of what they want in a man, but it's like all like he has to be a certain type or a certain look or it's like all list things. And when you look at what Mayan wrote on that list, there was none of that. There was none of the, you can judge a book by the cover, you can see it from the outside. It was all internally, what does she want to experience? And she wrote that wanting to create that with her ex-husband, like while she was still in that relationship. So she could have clung to, I want this to work in this relationship right now. And like, that's how she wanted it to look. But when you just get in touch with what you actually genuinely want and trust that you deserve, and don't hold on to what the outcome looks like, you're unattached to how it needs to happen, weird things can happen, like mysterious things can happen. Yeah. And so that's what makes it fun. In fact, I would say that's why we have so much fun in these conversations, is that similarly, we come in with the intent to have a great connection, a great conversation, and we have no idea what kind of ride we're going to go on.
There's so much truth to everything that you're saying. And it sounds like, how do I bridge that gap from them being pretty words and really grounding the individual listening to this on what that means? Like, Mayan, you said, and I'm going to paraphrase in my own words, like you get to be grounded on what your vision is for your future, how you want to experience that, and being unattached. And so many of us, and I get to share this experience later, I'm coming out of a very family connected weekend. And what some of the things that stood out for me from this weekend is how unaligned we can be as individuals into what really matters for us. So I could be, for example, thinking that I'm in alignment to my life and my goals and what I want, just like how you were, and you wrote it down and realized the relationship I'm in now is actually not in alignment to what you declared and what you've written and wanting to create with your marriage. And like you got to be unattached and open to, maybe it's not here, and maybe it's elsewhere, because you weren't expecting to want to get separated 6 weeks after. Like that was not at all on your radar, correct?
Nope.
Not at all. And how did you then notice here's what I wrote, and then here's the action that I get to take now. Because it's something that have, occurred, or maybe what happened within you for you to realize, oh, it's time.
Yeah, I mean, for that specific situation, right? And I'm also thinking the first thing that we talked about when we hopped on was like, what are we going to talk about? I don't know. That was giving me a little bit of anxiety, right? So I'm also trying to see like parallels of how in certain areas I feel more comfortable letting go and surrendering and seeing what comes up versus like having this conversation of like, what? We don't have it planned out? Like, but back to your question, like, how did I know what action to take, or how did I know how to proceed? I think for me, it was like I knew I needed to exhaust everything and to know that like I tried my best and I tried everything that I could, to make it work. And so a few marriage counselors later, right, like it's working through a lot of different things. And then ultimately it's like, you know what? I think it's in the best interest for us to go separate ways and like live, because what came out was one of the things was having very different values. So how do we want to live our lives? And that's not something that's easily compromisable, like, yes, you can do it. And would it serve the both of you,
And you have to have two people who want to do it.
Yeah. So I think part of it was knowing that, like, okay, I'm going to give it my all, in this and get support. And then from what came out of that, it's like, okay, now I have clarity as to what would be the best path for both of us. So
I like what you said there, and that's one of the things I've given advice to. I'm not an advocate for divorce. I do think that most couples can make it work most of the time if they both want to.
Yeah.
And when somebody's at that point where they say, I think it's time for a divorce, I just think we're done. That's the advice I always give, is make sure you've exhausted everything that you can do so that the day afterwards when you look in the mirror, I gave it everything I could. I did everything that I thought that I could do. Every piece of advice somebody gave me, I tried it. And you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I gave it my best shot, before you just go thinking, I'm going to go find another relationship and things are going to be easier. Because anything that you leave unworked on is going to come up in your next relationship. You're just kicking that can down the road if you're not actually working on it now. So I love that you talked about that.
Yeah. So May and I heard you got to be really honest with yourself about what you wanted to experience. You got to love yourself more. And sometimes that means making hard choices to be true to who you are and to know that you're worthy of having, if it's a relationship, a career, whatever it looks like for anyone. And it can be in multiple areas in our life as well. So I heard that you made the choice to give it your all. And you're like, I'm going to try everything that I possibly can to have the kind of life and love that you wanted. Like that's what I hear was the intention. It sometimes, and I think for myself, my intention was save my marriage. My intention wasn't have a fulfilling romantic relationship. And when I got clear on that for myself, I love what you said about writing it down, because for me, one of my big wake up calls was I wrote affirmations of like how I want to experience love, to remind myself, to ground myself on what I wanted. And then I had this moment of I'm reading these affirmations and I was like, oh my God, that's not what I have though. That what I want and what I have are different. And I had a big moment for myself of like, whoa, what is my intention then? Because I think I was misguided in my intention because I wasn't clear with my own values, and my life was reflecting that. And it sounded like you had this big moment of I am aligning my values and I'm really being clear on where I'm at and what I want and making choices from that space. So I hear that and I'm like, whew, it probably took a lot from you, and you got to be a lot of different things that maybe hadn't worked before for you to be able to be where you are now and find yourself in that relationship. Like that is so exactly what you described. And the fact that it was your birthday just blows my mind too.
That's so crazy, right? So as you say that, one of the things that comes to my head is so many relationships struggle with dissatisfaction,
Mm.
and both parties are trying to figure out how to meet the other person's need, but they individually haven't gone through that kind of exercise to figure out, what do you really want in this thing? Because, as you know, I reference the Gottmans a lot. The Gottman Institute is phenomenal. And one of the things that they say is like, the fight is never what it's about. The fight is always about something underneath. And so most couples have these arguments and these fights that are about something, but it's not what it's about. There's something underneath that. And so there ends up being this dissatisfaction in the relationship. But because one or both parties have never done that exercise of like, what do I actually really want? What does it look like? Write it out and then be like, this is what I'm hoping to get. Can we work on creating this together? And if we were actually both clear and had that conversation of, this is what I want, what do you want? Can we try and give this to each other? I think you'd have a lot more success. It doesn't mean it's going to be an easier road necessarily, but you at least know what the other person is looking for. And instead, when we're not getting those needs met and the values aren't getting fulfilled, we just get this like, just angst in the relationship. And now we're just fighting about every little thing because the deeper things are not being met. So now every shallow thing is like end of the world kind of, conflict.
And especially if you don't know what you want.
That's my
and
point.
You're not able to communicate it. Yeah. And then it just feels like nothing's working or everything's annoying you and can't get over it. Yeah.
Yep. I agree.
I love this right here, because when we were thinking about Mayan, when we first logged on and what are we talking about, I was going to bring up the topic of communication, of like, if there isn't anything off the top of your mind that you felt compelled to share, to talk about, to pour into, I was going to bring up the topic of communication, because I have two incredible experts here in relationship and love and health. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about that. So now the way that I see it, it's like communication is the tip of the iceberg. But if you don't know what you're communicating, if you don't know how to communicate it, if you don't know how to land it, like, doesn't that in itself just provide other challenges too? What are your thoughts on that? And how do you guys work on communication? Because it's not just here's what we're going to do and it works all the time. At least I'm guessing that's not how it happens. It takes it takes constant from both.
We have like 4 or 5 hours on this podcast, right? Like we should be able to get through all of this.
Sure, definitely. Right? We have time.
Stay tuned, people. This is going to be a series, a couple of weeks. Do you have anything you'd like to start by answering that question?
Well, I wanted to share something that's maybe on the outskirts of communication, but it's related. I was just going to say, like, this past week and a half, we probably had some of the most intense
conversations
/ arguments that we've had in a long time. And one of those was about a topic that, like, in my previous relationships was never really an issue. And so I was telling you that the importance of recognizing when we get into a relationship that it's not, if we don't work through something and someone tries to move on to another relationship, it will probably bring up something else for you to work on. So there's always going to be something, some kind of trigger that we get to look at. And if we're not responsible and looking at, okay, why is this triggering me? Why does this impact me? Then we run the mistake of thinking, oh, wait, there's something wrong with this person, so let me just start over and move on. Is there anything you want to?
Sure, guys. I think that's a great place to start. One, I think we should at least address this issue. So many people think, or at an unconscious level, want or hope a relationship that has an end goal of happiness and has like a fairy tale. If I just find the right person, then love is going to be easy. And we don't talk about this often, but one of the things that I like to say is that your like soulmate, your ideal partner is not always going to make life easy. In fact, their job is to rub and create friction in you to show you the spots on you that need to be worked on. Mm-hmm. And so I have a couple of metaphors. We don't need to go into those, but like the point is that they're supposed to poke you in the part that's sensitive, because that's the part it's infected. And if you don't deal with it, then you're not going to be the best you. And true love is when somebody sees the best version of you and stands by you through your mess, through the ugly times, and holds that vision of you at the highest and supports you getting there. And they're committed to helping you get the best out of you. That's, to me, true love. Anything short of that is junior high love. Like, you just, we just want it to be like lovey-dovey all the time. Like, that's a shallow relationship, and you're not going to be the best that you can be. So that's my perspective. Yeah. We haven't really talked about that much, but
no. And I actually had a conversation with a client this past week, and she was saying how she mentioned, I want to find somebody who's not going to get emotionally charged, I think was her way of saying it, meaning like they're not going to argue, like, or he's not going to, you know, get like really upset, and I had to remind her and invite her to think, you know, that it's not that we're not going to get emotional or get into those uncomfortable negative emotions, because we're human, we're all going to experience that, but it's more about can we move through the conflict together and communicate in a way where you're growing because of it, not, you know, and not being stuck in that conflict. And so I think that goes back to what you were saying about the fairy tale perspective of, oh, I just want the happily ever after and it's not going to be any work, or it's like, actually the work is what it's
the work is where the meaning is.
Yeah. It's what makes it great.
The work is where the meaning is. Wow. There's a theme, you know, that came up for me this weekend with my family as well. And along the lines of communication and like understanding yourself and what your triggers mean, there comes a level of curiosity of understanding like that connection with your own voice, with your own higher self, with your own intuition, whatever you want to call it, of, is this even in alignment with me? One of the things that I got to get clear on with my sisters this weekend is the idea of safety when it comes to communication. They're, depending on, you know, how you were raised and what your experiences are on communicating even as a child, helps shape how you feel comfortable and confident in being able to communicate now as an adult. And in one of the examples that I saw this weekend is there wasn't safety. Safety wasn't created when the child wanted to speak. And now as an adult, it's like, oh, I don't want to connect to my emotions. I don't want to communicate it, because if I do, XYZ will happen. And I think for myself, in order to be able to land my communication with somebody, I need to know what I'm trying to communicate. I need to know how I feel about this. I need to know if where that's even my choice and my story is deriving from. Is this from an authentic place of, I know who I am, I know what I need, and I'm going to communicate that? Or is it, I'm trying to people please, I'm trying to not step on toes, and I'm communicating what I think you need to hear from me? And I think for myself, step one is honestly, how is the communication with myself? Am I in alignment? Can I even hear what I'm trying to say? And if I can't, how can I communicate that to somebody else? I'm just stirring the pot in chaos at that point.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I've struggled with that growing up as well, of feeling like I need to either not say anything or, you know, say something that is what people are expecting me to say. And so there's been a lot of unlearning around that and learning the new tools. I'm curious for you, what has been effective or impactful for you to re-listen, reconnect to your own voice?
Oh, great question. Love that. It's been a series of things, and I think a special sauce, it's a combination of a lot of things that create this special sauce. Meditation, for one, when I learned how to just be present into my body and to feel things, like I would ask myself, like in a state of meditation, what does joy feel like? And I would think of a joyful moment and let that emotion consume my body. And I was like, oh yeah, this is joy. And I would think about something tense or something stressful so that I can feel what that feels like in my body. So that in moments where I am in conversation and maybe not fully present, I know now to listen to my body when it's communicating to me. I'm like, oh, I feel anxious or stressed, or my palms are starting to sweat. That was a big one for me. I would notice that when I felt uncomfortable or nervous or anxious for whatever reason, my palms would get sweaty. And I was like, okay, I'm listening. What is it that what is it that I'm communicating here? Or what story, what narrative am I carrying on right now? And how do I get to realign with myself and listen to what's actually being communicated? And that was a big step, was meditating, getting clear on how certain emotions felt in my body, and realizing like, oh, I'm anxious. Well, what am I anxious about? I'm nervous about, oh, if I say this, they're going to get mad at me. Or if I communicate this, it's going to cause tension. And that's how I started listening to myself. Sometimes my initial, this is what I want to say, I'd have to stop. And I'm like, wait, why am I saying that? Oh, to people, please. Got it. No, that doesn't work anymore. And then I had to create kind of checks and balances for me internally. And then I'm like, I also used to, I noticed this in this practice, judge myself for what I wanted to say. And once I started identifying that and silencing the judgment and just letting it be okay, I realized I was then in tune and connected with myself. So that was my own experience of how I got to connect with myself. And man, did it take practice. So much practice. So much practice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I recently started participating in this. I think it's actually a 21-day embodiment practice. And one of the exercises we're doing is to track when we feel some sort of way. So if an event happens and I'm noticing something, okay, how is it making me feel in my body? Like what's coming up? What was the trigger? How does it make me feel in my body? What are my thoughts about it? How long is it lasting? Like all of these different things. And I actually, of course, being the analytical person that I am, I like created a whole Google form where I just like type it up and answer all the questions. And then later on, I can analyze the details. So yeah, if anybody is analytical like that,
She's a freak in the
loves
sheets, the spreadsheets.
Yeah, it's a good way to pause and be present and reconnect and see what's really going on. What?
No, I love
Nothing
that
like
you
that
did that. I love that you did that, because when you really look at it, you can clearly see patterns. And I don't know how far along into it you are. For me, I would just take notes out on my phone and I would type it in. And then later I would like search sweaty palms, like how many times did that come up? I know that sounds really, really silly, but that's truly what I would experience. Is I was like, oh my God, what is happening? What's happening? And when I started asking myself what's happening and allowing myself to be curious just about myself, I got to know myself. And I got to stop the judgment of like, I can't believe you're afraid of that. I can't believe you're nervous about this. I can't believe you feel this emotion about just enforcing a boundary. But releasing that judgment and just creating love within myself to be able to do that. Majestic, can you please share the empty Google Doc with me so I can do it too?
Yes, absolutely.
You probably should just put a link in the show notes, because probably you're not the only
Honestly,
two people that want this kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. To go back to your initial question, I think one of the things I want to say about communication is that most of the time we want to be heard and seen and felt, and we put the responsibility of that onto the person who we want to see and hear and feel us.
Yeah.
And our coaches, our mentors teach us the importance of the ownership of the outcome of communication is the responsibility of the communicator, right? So like whatever you're receiving, it's my job to communicate effectively to you what's going on. And if you're not getting that, that means I'm not doing a great job yet of communicating what needs to be expressed. And so if we're having a conversation and I don't feel seen, I don't feel heard, I get to slow it down and figure out how can I express myself better? Because so often we hear, and I bristle when I hear it, one of the most oversimplified things that is relationship advice is that communication is key. Like good communication is key. We're always communicating something.
Yeah.
Even when we're not saying something and we're sitting completely still, I'm communicating.
Yeah.
93% of our communication is nonverbal.
Yeah.
So what am I saying, even when I'm not saying something that is causing you to not get that? when we recognize that it's my responsibility to effectively communicate, not just say words. I watched this cute thing this morning. Oh my gosh, it was so cute. I'm going to say he was 4 years old. This little British boy in the backseat of the car is like, he's been picked up from daycare and he is frustrated. And his mom his mom, I should say, in her little British accent is asking him what's going on. And the girls, they just talk too much. They never shut up. They're always talking. And she's like, oh, really? Well, what about the boys? Do the boys talk? Yeah, when they need to. She's like, but they don't talk too much? No, they only talk when they need to. And I think as I was watching it and laughing, typically men say less words and typically women say more words. Mm-hmm. And then we judge the opposite sex for not communicating like we do. And I want to point out that one of the things that I think makes a great relationship is when both parties stop just tolerating the other spouse, the other party, and then they move into what I call level 1, which is accepting. And then when they grow in beyond that into level 2, which is respecting, and then level 3 is appreciating. And what I mean by that is oftentimes if I'm talking to you and you're not getting it, I'm frustrated. I don't even tolerate how you're hearing me. At some point, I might accept the way that you hear me. But when I can move into respecting how you're communicating with me and appreciating it, everything changes. And the reason I'm bringing this up is oftentimes men are the ones who you're using all these words. Just get to the point. Like, just tell me what is going on so we can solve this problem. And they're shortcutting it. And women sometimes are like, we're going to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, but first we got to fly from New York to LA, and then we're going to hop from LA to Phoenix, and then we're going to drive. It's like, good God, woman, just get to the point. There's value in both. Yeah. And when you're coming into that relationship going, hey, I'm going to have to talk to get my feelings out and to get to the bottom of what I need. And me as your partner, I'm going to try and point you and shepherd you to the end. So this happens like tonight and not like over the course of the next 3 or 4 weeks. Like there's values to both, but we forget to appreciate what the other party is bringing into the situation. And so moving that to me, that is the simplest way that I can communicate what emotional maturity is. Can you move from barely tolerating to accepting to respecting to appreciating your partner? Because they're going to be very different from you. And if you can find the reasons that their differences are valuable to you and appreciate that, you're a game changer. That's a game changer, and you're going to have a great relationship.
Wow. There's a lot of truth into what you said. And I think there's a very clear example of me and Dennis that comes up when I heard you share that. Is something that helped us understand one another and listen to one another and appreciate one another was understanding our unique love languages. Because ours was a reversed. I was like, Dennis, get to the point. You've spoken for 15 minutes and you've said nothing. Like I do not hear what you're saying. Get to the point. And he and I experienced the role reversal often. So when you're talking about that, I was like, oh my God, I remember that. Get to the point. What do you say? And there were times where I got to shift and create analogies that I knew would land for him. Because I'm like, he doesn't hear what I'm saying. He doesn't
You're too direct. Yeah.
comprehend what I'm saying, right? And what really helped us is when I understood that he is such an acts of service person, that he was showing me his love through knowing me and identifying the areas where he can come in and provide love and provide support so that I wouldn't have to do it. Or if I hated doing something, he'd be like, hey, this is an easy thing for me to do. Let me take care of it for you. And then he understood the ways that I'm a big words of affirmation person. And I would constantly say, I appreciate you for this. So he always felt loved. Whereas sometimes for me, I had the expectation of I wanted to hear it and I wasn't hearing it. I was seeing it. And once that bridge was gapped, I was like, oh, I can appreciate you. And I appreciate the way that you're providing love and support for me, where in the past I didn't see it. Right. Because I wanted to hear it. And now that I identify how you're showing up for me, I have mass amounts of appreciation for you. So I love that you said that, because man, when that gap is there and you're just like, I'm trying to say things. I don't know if you've ever seen Inside Out 2. They had a really great example of this, is that there was like this like sarcasm thing, and that anytime somebody was trying to speak over the canyon of sarcasm or whatever it was, they heard it completely differently. And it was just like, wouldn't it, oh, you're such a good worker, but they hear like, you're such a good worker, and you're like, what do you mean by that? So like bridging that gap kind of helped that land. And one more thing, I don't remember who said this, but I have a teenage niece, and right now I am experiencing moments where I'm like, you're punishing me because I can't read your mind. And I'm trying to, land with her, communicate how you feel. Tell me clearly what you want from me, because right now I feel like I'm being punished for not being able to read your mind. And she has these expectations of what she wants our relationship or other people's relationship in her life to look like. She's not saying that. She's not communicating it, but there's punishment for not meeting those expectations.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that happens a lot too.
There are a lot of men who experience that for sure. And so I thank you for presencing that, because for some reason there's this, and it's romantic to think that like, oh, somebody's just going to like know you so well and just meet all of your needs without you having to communicate any of them. And it's like, yeah, that's a nice romantic fantasy, but isn't it also romantic to think that if you could articulate what you needed and there was a man or a person who wanted to give you that, even when it wasn't his natural instinct, but he still was willing to do what you wanted because he wants you to be happy, like that's romantic too. Like don't discount the work. It's actually easier for the guy who could just read your mind and do it. That's not even work. He's not even trying. It's just a gift or whatever. But somebody who's willing to lay down their life to do what you need and want, that's, to me, that's more romantic if you can look for it.
Yeah. And I think that happens in any relationship, whether it's with parents or kids or friends, right? If we have expectations of how a relationship should be, but then we don't communicate that, and then if they don't show up that way, now we're secretly punishing them or having resentment. I mean, that can happen.
It's almost like the golden rule in reverse sometimes, where, the golden rule is like, do unto others as you want them to do unto you. But it's almost like others should do unto me as I would do for them. And that's almost impossible to understand. Like, I want to know you, but I don't know. Even we've been together for years and we have these kind of conversations. And there are times where I'm like, I don't know what you want in this situation. And frankly, oftentimes she doesn't know what she wants in this situation.
And then it changes when I do.
No, I frequently remind people, like, I'm going to the store. I ask her what she wants. She'll tell me what she wants. And then I get home and what she wants has changed. And it's like, that's just being in a relationship with a woman. So you get to, instead of resenting it, keeps you on your toes. It's fun. It's the excitement. That's where Mother Nature got her name from. She's beautiful blue sky in the morning, and then she turns into clouds and rain at night. Like, it just happens, and you get to appreciate that. Otherwise, it would be boring. Yeah.
I love that you both said boring. It would be boring. I guess I want to recap now what we've heard. I know what I've heard, and I have my own takeaways, and I'm a firm believer that we hear what we need to hear. And some of my big takeaways here are identifying, getting to hear yourself when you're communicating really helps you land it. And a big takeaway from this is the responsibility we hold to, hey, if I'm not being heard, then I'm not communicating it in the right way. And then identifying within ourselves, like, how do we get to then bridge the gap so that we have good communication? And maybe it might even be identifying within your relationship, whether it's a romantic one or a business or familial, like what kind of communication you want and expect, so that you don't necessarily always have those resentments and punishment for when somebody's not reading your mind. So those are some of my big takeaways. I'd love to hear what you guys are walking away from in this conversation.
I'll go first.
Okay, sure.
I want to just add one little tag onto what you just said there, because you encapsulated it beautifully. One of the things that I think helps us in relationships of any kind, even work relationships, so often when we're communicating and not feeling heard, we end up whether consciously or unconsciously, accidentally forgetting that we're not on the same team, or that we are on the same team.
We are on the
And so
same team.
now the problem is you, not we. We have a problem. And if we individually can keep in mind that whatever the struggle is, you're not the problem is the problem. We're on a team together to solve the problem. And if you can keep that in mind, that will cut down on a lot of the conflicts, and it will help you focus on actually creating solutions instead of just making your partner, your niece, your nephew, your boss, the bad guy. Now there's a real problem that the two of you can solve together.
Yep.
Love that. Yeah.
Same
That's my-
team.
Yep.
Anything?
Same team. Yeah. I think one of my biggest takeaways was what you said about tolerating and then respecting and then what's it?
So I say tolerating is level 0, acceptance is
Accepting.
level 1,
Accepting.
respect is level 2, and appreciation is level 3.
Well, we talk about that in a lot of different contexts. And
Yeah.
I think the communication one is a really important one. We also talk about it in terms of if we are different people, right? And there are things about you that I don't naturally, isn't maybe an interest of mine or a value of mine.
Mhm.
But I can move through those phases and go into actually appreciating and seeing how that adopting that can actually bring value into my life. Like that's such a beautiful thing. And I think one of the Gottman principles is if you can, like successful and happy couples, they focus on what is good
Mhm.
and going well versus what's not going well, and you're nitpicking
Focusing
or
on the
looking, focusing on the negative stuff. And couples that go down that route of, spiraling downward, they start with focusing on the good stuff, and then at some point they'll switch to now only focusing or mostly focusing on the negative stuff. And I think that's an important, if we know that can happen and that's an indicator of how your relationship is going downhill, I mean, it's something that we can consciously and intentionally put attention on, right? So that we can actually, okay, let's stop. Let's focus on what's good. Oh, you've got these quirks. I used to love that about you, right?
Often
Instead
happens.
of now, it's so annoying to me. Stop doing that.
That happens
you
more
haven't
than you know.
changed.
Like the thing that attracted you to this person becomes the thing that annoys you. You were attracted because it was different than you.
Right.
And when you have a partner who has a different value than you, that's beneficial to you because now your partnership has two different strengths. But when when you start to get annoyed by them, their strength becomes the annoyance. And so, to carry on what you were saying, the state of the world, the state of nature is entropy. So everything is breaking down. Muscularly, health-wise, like metal rusts, like everything is breaking down unless you're maintaining it. And so if you just think, oh, we've met each other and fell in love and we're just gonna be happily ever after, that's just BS. Like you can do maintenance and create happily ever after, but it doesn't just happen. And so finding that intention to say, we're going to keep working on this and focusing on what we love and not let those little nuisances steal our joy. All those things are critically important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll also add my other big takeaway is just trusting and not having things all planned out and prepared, and it will turn into something beautiful and unexpected even.
And that applies to so many aspects of life, if not all of them. Just because I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I was going to bring that up. I'm like, how did it go? You trusted and you just showed up and it was phenomenal. So thank you for presencing that, Mayan, too, because so many times we do get to just trust that it'll be okay. And to tie it back to something you said earlier, like ask for support too. And it'll be fine. So thank you guys for this incredible conversation, for sharing your insight, for sharing yourself so openly and vulnerably. I'm so excited to hear everything that people get from the takeaways from this show. And I do want to include that link, Mayan. So I hope that I do that link to include, so that if you are kind of paying attention and curious about your body and want to reconnect that, I'm sure this is going to be an incredible tool to be able to identify patterns in your ways of being to help you grow. Because what a beautiful way, what a beautiful gift. So thank you guys so much, and we look forward to having you back on soon.
Awesome.
Thanks, Vanessa.
It's always fun.
Love you.
Thank you for listening to the Curious Hearts Collective podcast with your host and executive producer, Vanessa Trufin. This podcast has been produced by Dennis Trufin. And remember, links to resources will always be in the show notes down below for you, so make sure you check those out. And please follow, rate, and review this podcast wherever you are listening, as it does really help out this show.